Welcome to Dr. Z PhD Interviews, place where I interview interesting and inspiring people. Today's special guest is Alana Dzurich. Alana is a founder and also a CEO of Beverly Hills Hair System, as well as there's a new venture on the horizons. What do you call this new venture?
It's called Electrolysis Tech.
Electrolysis, yeah. We'll get into it today and talk about it and explore what is it that you're doing out there. Alana, thank you so much for joining. For starters, why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about yourself, where you come from, and how did you get into this field?
Yeah, well, first of all, hello, Natalia. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. And let me go back. So my name is Alana Dzurich, and I'm the CEO and founder, the creator of the Beverly Hills Hair System, and recently a new venture, a joint venture called Electrolysis Tech. So my background is I actually graduated with a business marketing degree, an international business marketing degree, and did some corporate. Didn't really feel fulfilled. You know, I was doing things that I wasn't really happy with and walking away every day thinking there's got to be something better. There's got to be something more. I was really young. I was in my early 20s. And my company, lucky for me, filed for bankruptcy and I got laid off. So beautiful opportunity for me to now figure out what do I want to do. So I had no idea what electrolysis was. And an aunt of mine, she was a nail tech and she worked in a nail salon. And she said, you know, you should look into electrolysis. I said, what is it? She said, my boss removes hair for a living. She makes her own schedule. She really likes it. You should check it out. Well, there just so happened to be a school in Queens. I was living in Brooklyn, New York at the time. And the school that I attended was the Berkowitz School of Electrology. And I actually had no idea what I was getting into.
I bet.
Yep. But it was a leap of faith. I took the leap of faith, went and visited, put a deposit down. The next thing I know, I'm a graduated electrologist. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
And you've been doing this for how long now? How many years have you been working?
It's been almost 26 years.
Yeah, 26 years. That's a long time in the field. And in your 26 years, do you primarily tend to serve transgender and gender nonconforming and non-binary community, or is it just pretty much everybody?
I treat everybody and we treat everybody. I like to focus on the difficult to treat cases because those are interesting to me. You know, the other stuff I say, I could just do that in my sleep. Not that I don't like doing it, but I really always want to look for something I haven't seen before, something I've never done before. To me, that keeps me sharp. But the transgender community, it actually happened by accident. I was doing something that nobody else was doing at the time, and it is my multi-probe treatment. So when somebody wanted something faster and more permanent, they decided, let me look into this option. And it just was something that happened. I didn't intentionally decide that this is what I was going to do, but that's where I am today, and I love it.
Okay, so before we get into this multi-probe treatment, which sounds painful just hearing it, and I'm sure you'll share whether it is or not, because you haven't tried it. When you said difficult to treat cases, I'm just curious to know, what are the difficult to treat cases? What would that be?
So I got to tell you that most people going into the industry and people who have hair think that when they walk in the door and they say, hey, I have hair, let's just get rid of it, right? So the treatment is great, let's just get rid of your hair. The problem is that may not be the underlying problem. And so what happens is you can eliminate the hair, but then that doesn't fix the problem. So with what we do is I go to the root, what's causing the hair. Obviously, when people are transitioning, that's easy, right? It's because they're transitioning. But what about the many young girls that there's no reason why they're growing a full beard? Or let's just pick an area and someone's growing hair out of a mole, let's say, and they just want to get rid of it. Those are what I call difficult to treat cases, because unless we understand why the hair is there, we can take it off, but chances are it's going to come back, right? And it's going to take a couple of years maybe, and then they're back to where they started, whether it's a hormonal imbalance. There's something called HS, and I always have a hard time saying it. It's called hydranditis. Supervativa.
Okay.
Supervativa.
Sounds
Okay.
complicated.
Yeah, it
Sounds
was
difficult already, just by the
featured
sheer
on
name
Dr.
of it.
Pimple Popper, where patients come in and they have these growths underneath their armpits and in the groin area, and it's incredibly painful and cyst-like. So when there's an eruption, it's incredibly difficult and challenging for them to shave or wax, and it's painful. So those are the types of things that I say are difficult to treat, because ordinarily if they come into a salon or a shop and they're like, hey, I want to get rid of the hair, they can get rid of the hair, but the problem doesn't go away.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Well, for the sake of the interview, we will be focusing on transgender community because, you know, the reality is that people who are watching my channel are transgender people.
Yes.
So when you say multi-prop, right, what are you talking about here? What does it mean? How is this actually different from any other method of electrolysis? So share a little bit about what exactly entails in the treatment.
Okay, so let me explain. So typical conventional electrolysis uses one probe, right? They go in one little tiny probe at a time and they remove each hair.
And prop is needle, right? So
correct. We don't like to say needle because when we say needle, patients think that it's a needle, you know, like a needle when they're getting in a shot, but they're not. They're the size of a tiny little hair. So we like to use the word probe because it's literally the size of a hair. So we use up to 32 of them, okay, simultaneously.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so if you can imagine, if you're sitting there at a treatment and that person is removing one little hair at a time, it's a tiny little probe per follicle, we're using 32 at the same time. And then once those 32 are inserted, they're removed, the hair comes out, and you basically rinse and repeat. You do the same thing over and over again.
So you have to put in individual prop out of the 32. Each individual has to go in manually with a hand.
Correct.
My goodness. And is the feeling similar to getting acupuncture?
No, acupuncture is actually a little bit more painful, I would say, and different. I've had acupuncture myself. Those needles are very long. They're about that long. They're long, they're intense. And for me, because I'm very sensitive, those needles hurt when they go in. It feels great after a while, but you can definitely feel it. With electrolysis, it's a whole different ballgame. The treatment is different. You do feel a sensation because I was taught, and I can attest to it. If you're feeling nothing, nothing's happening.
Okay, so you ought to feel something. Are you out to feel excruciating pain?
Well, here's the thing. Everybody's pain tolerance is different. And I'm glad you asked that. I'm very sensitive. Somebody else might not be sensitive. And judging by our wide range of patients, right, we run the gamut. We have people who feel absolutely nothing. And I honestly don't know how that's possible because the current's definitely running. I can see it.
Unbelievable. Lucky people.
Yes. And then we have the patients who feel everything to an extreme degree. So what we love to do is I figured out where I don't want my patients to suffer at all, right? So a great comfortable treatment for me, a pain-free treatment, is the best treatment for my clients. So we've developed a system where we work with a network of doctors, anesthesiologists, where you can get everything from lidocaine cream to a full-on 6-hour block where you don't feel anything.
Wow. Okay, so that's great. What about over-counter pain medication? Are those recommended? Advil, Midol, things like that. Is those recommended prior to electrolysis?
Here's the thing. In my opinion, it's not my place to recommend things to somebody because everybody is so different. For us at Beverly Hills Hair Free, it is never a one size fits all. So for example, I'm sensitive to drugs. I have to be careful what I take. If somebody else is not, then it probably wouldn't do anything for them.
Got it. What about drinking? Alcohol is such a big number for a lot of people, right? I'm not saying you're going to endorse or recommend for people to drink, but I'm curious about is if somebody did had a drink or 2 drinks prior to electrolysis, does that affect electrolysis results?
Again, well, interesting. That's actually a 2-part question. So the first part I'll say is I can't recommend or not recommend it. What I say to my patients is, you know your pain level, you know your tolerance. Whatever works for you, that's what you should do. It is a personal choice. And whatever works for you, that's what you should follow. Drinking on its own is not recommended, because if you are not one of those people who it relaxes in the first place, then don't do it just to come in thinking it's going to relax you. It won't.
Right. Okay. But it won't necessarily affect the efficiency, I should say, of
No,
electrolysis. Okay.
no.
Okay. Got it. That's good to know.
One thing has nothing to do with the other in that respect. Yes.
When we talk about multi-prop, we're talking about, now I know there's names, galvanic, thermolysis, blend. How are those names fit with the multi versus single needle prop?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that. So, Gail, there are 3 different types of electrolysis, and I'm going to tell you that first, and then I'll tell you how it relates to the system that we use. So the 3 different types of electrolysis are, the first one that was ever invented back in 1875 is called galvanic electrolysis. Okay, that's where you convert saltwater molecules into sodium hydroxide. Okay, and it creates galvanic, and that is what we use to destroy the hair. The second version that was created is called thermolysis, which is heat-based. It works off of high frequency, very similar to a laser, right? And that's what they use to simply destroy the hair. Okay, and then there's a combination of the 2, which is called the blend method. That's the galvanic together with thermolysis, and it creates, in my opinion, and actually there's research to back this up as well, galvanic is still your main use. You're still using galvanic, whether you think you are or you're not, you're still using galvanic. So galvanic is still there, and then you crank up the thermolysis to give it a little bit more power. It's kind of like putting a pot of water on a flame. The thermolysis is your actual knob that cranks it up, but the pot of water is your galvanic. So whether people think they're using galvanic or not, they're absolutely using galvanic. And so in my opinion, the method that we use, you don't need thermolysis. You're already using 32 probes of the galvanic. It's simply, it's not necessary.
Okay, so to simplify even further, and I know you already did it, but to simplify even further in a lay terms. So galvanic is, we put the probe in, this liquid solution flows in, and the solution is what ends up killing the hair follicle, right? Thermolysis is, we put the probe in, it's a single probe, and there's electrical current similar to laser in some respects, and it's the electrical current that kills the follicle. And then the blend is, the galvanic solution is the primary, and then the electrical current gives it a boost, if you will. So those are the 3 methods, right? Yeah. So in your opinion, and you primarily do galvanic multi-probe type of treatment, have you actually have experience working with thermolysis and the blend to be able to compare how they pair across the board?
I have, and I'm grateful that you asked that. So the first thing I ever learned when I did the Berkowitz School of Electrolysis, I only learned thermolysis. I had a very short course in galvanic, which they don't really focus on. I don't know if they do that now, but back then they didn't. So everybody does thermolysis, and that's what you basically leave school knowing. I had very, very little knowledge of galvanic. So I used thermolysis for 2 years in my practice, and I struggled very badly. Most of my clients complained of pain. They wanted to know why they had such regrowth rates, and I couldn't explain it. And so my question was, how can I do this if I myself don't believe in it? Okay. So for me, I struggled with it. I didn't see what they taught me in school working when I got out of school. It just didn't compute for me. And I thought, maybe it's me, maybe I'm missing something. And so I had the luck of the draw where I had to move out of state because I got married. So when I moved to Maryland, I had to get licensed because it's the requirements state to state are different. So while New York was an unlicensed state, Maryland was a very restrictive, overregulated state. And I made the decision that since thermolysis wasn't working for me, I had heard about galvanic electrolysis and people having success. I decided I was going to try to find somebody that can teach me the galvanic method. And I landed on who I'm so grateful, my mentor, who taught me the multi-probe system. And not only I didn't know it back then, not only did she teach me the system, but she is the woman who traveled with the person who developed these devices that are currently in circulation. And they were doing sales here in the US. They did South Africa and Israel and a couple of other continents. This was magical to me. I didn't know it at the time, but when I learned the system, for me, it was a challenge to learn it. And I thought, most of the time, I think it's because I was really nervous. She was a stickler. She was an amazing mentor and a, great practitioner, but she made me very nervous. So it took me a while to learn it, but she insisted that this was going to be the way that we were going to treat people. And she was right.
Why? I mean, it seems to me that multi-probe is no-brainer, right? When I'm hearing this, I'm thinking, well, yeah, you go there for an hour, you try to target bigger, more hair follicle versus with a single probe, you can only do so much. Why is it still not as predominant as it seems like it ought to be?
So I can only tell you what my opinion is of that. I think it's a resistance in our own industry. Because it's easier to leave school and just do thermolysis with a single probe. It's also easier to do it with galvanic single probe. The other thing is Jim Jensen, the person responsible for building the devices that we were using for all these years, closed his doors and he wasn't manufacturing anymore. So it didn't make sense for people in the industry to learn something that probably was never going to be available again. It doesn't mean that it isn't the best thing out there. It just means that for a really long time, it just wasn't being produced.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So with the hair follicle, right? When we do, and since you're doing galvanic, we're going to focus primarily on galvanic here. With the galvanic method, once that solution is introduced, is that particular hair dead, or is there potential for regrowth? And if there is potential for regrowth, what's happening with the regrowth in terms of just technicality? What's happening here? Does it mean that solution didn't really kill it the first time around?
Right. So I'll explain that. So the solution, just to clarify, because I really want to give you an idea of how it works, so that I think it's important for people to understand that we're not introducing the solution. The miracle of this is that you already have it. It's the salt water in our tissue that creates the solution. We're introducing current. It's DC current, which is different from the AC current that thermolysis uses. It's just a different type of current, okay? So ours needs to be grounded, where we have to either have a cardiac pad attached, because we're the ground. You know how our bodies are great conductors of electricity, right? When someone's heart, God forbid, stops, they paddle them, or if you throw a live wire in water, I like to use that analogy. Think of what a live wire in water does. It literally electrifies everything in its path. This is the beauty of galvanic. Do you see that picture?
I'm getting there, yes. Okay.
So the live wire is our little probes that are inserted into the follicle. And then what happens within that follicle, in the salty solution that is in our bodies, it literally just creates this reaction, right? And it's sodium hydroxide, Lye. And that's the destruction, okay? Versus thermolysis, and then you can follow up with any questions, which is simply a heat. It doesn't create any chemical inside the follicle. It's literally a heat that's inserted. The heat travels up the probe and it's got a small diameter of a heating pattern. And then if you hit the target, which here's the other thing. We're working blindly because we don't know where the target is. We don't know where the stem cells are. We have an idea, but if you're putting a needle into a tiny follicle, do you really know where that target is? Do you see my point? So there you have the effects, the more effectiveness, right, of galvanic versus thermolysis.
Okay.
That's the no-brainer for me. And because I used to be a thermolysis operator, when I realized how we were getting the results with galvanic, it was a no-brainer.
Okay, so now I'm off to this natural salt levels in our body, because now I'm thinking
Yeah.
for people for whom, for some, because everybody's different, right? And everybody's hair follicles different and body composition is different. So it makes me now wonder for people who are struggling with even galvanic method, especially with galvanic, because we're talking about that mixtures that is kind of activated with the current, right? And now it makes me wonder for people who are struggling and it takes them longer than anybody else to have the hair removal, if that's perhaps because the number or the amount of salt in the body may be different, or the composition.
Natalia, I love that you just said that, because I can't tell you how many times people say to me, what is the formula? And I always say, it depends on your physiology.
Mhm.
And everybody thinks it's just a term that Alana coined. No, you understand now why I say that. I don't know what's going on in your body.
Right.
So when we treat a client, there are a variety of measures that we take. We also keep very accurate records, because I know how long it should take an average person to get from point A to point B to point C. And if that's not happening, what's going on with this person's physiology that's actually not making them progress in their process?
What is that average time? So let's say hypothetically, again, we're throwing big hypotheticals out there.
Right.
These are really big estimates. These are not quotes for anybody watching this to take. So somebody's walking in and they have full grown facial beard. I'm talking about their entire face is covered.
Mhm.
For what is an average? How often would they have to come in? For how many hours to have that fully removed? Hypothetically speaking.
Yeah, I understand. And we always say, give us 18 months to 24 months. That is your average. Okay.
How often?
The average given means you have to be very consistent with your treatment plan. And our treatment plans consist of once a week, 4 hours a week.
Okay.
Okay,
So
that is sufficient for our system, because it gives the client enough time to heal, and we can focus on large areas to take down the density. And that's how we work. Not to, knock anybody else's work practices, but I've seen them come from other electrologists where they're clearing a quarter size area, a dime size area. Again, I always say it's because of the way they're educating these people. It was done to me too. I just didn't believe in someone leaving my office with a little dime size, cleared.
yeah.
That's nothing, and it doesn't get the client the results they need. So we don't operate that way. We go for the density.
Okay, that would make sense. It would make sense that you would want to target pretty much the entire face, even in different areas, so that the density will decrease, so they feel better and they also don't look weird as they're going through the whole, right?
And they start to see results.
Okay, so let's talk laser, because laser is the number, and I know you're not a laser technician, laser is not your forte. The reason why I ask is because you can imagine a lot of people go for laser first because laser is more inexpensive, right? So have you ever seen, do you believe laser actually can be effective for some people?
Again, my personal opinion is it is not going to be effective. But I will elaborate on that. It depends on what you're looking to do, right? So I've been in the industry long enough to know that people always go for laser when they just don't want to see the hair. It doesn't mean that it's gone forever. They just don't want to see the hair. And if they're going back weekly, monthly, whatever their treatment plan is, that works for them because it isn't there for them. If they were to stop the treatments, they would see that there's a lot of hair still there. Okay, so then to also add to what you asked me, in our practice, we don't want them doing laser because there is a phenomenon called paradoxical hypertrichosis, which has the opposite effect of clearing the hair. It actually grows more hair. And I know that because in Canada right now, they are using lasers to stimulate hair growth on bald men.
Okay, so how does it work? So basically, person getting laser, and then if they do come into you for electrolysis, the combination of the two somehow creates a cross stimulation where the hair grows?
No, not the combination of two. Laser does that all on its own. Right. That is just a phenomenon that happens. They say that it happens rarely. I'm starting to see in our practice that's not the case. It's happening more and more often. We can't control people do what they want to do before they find us. But once they're in our office, we ask them not to do any other treatment. And I'll tell you why. It's not because, Alana doesn't want them getting hair free faster. I don't know what progress they're making from our office and from outside influences. Or if they say to me, well, your process isn't working, well, I don't know what else you're doing. And if you're doing other things, then how do I know it's not my process? That's not what it's my process that isn't working. You see what I'm saying? We like to take responsibility for what we do, and we know that we're successful. If the person is doing other things, I can't account for what that's going to do for them.
Okay. So, but laser is also can be permanent. I know you have an opinion that it seems like it's permanent immediately, but not long term.
It's not my opinion. It's the FDA that has never cleared laser for anything permanent. If you go on their website, it's actually, it says it right there. They're not allowed to use permanent. They do it anyway, but it's really at the person's own discretion. Do your research. The other thing I will say is, and I'm not knocking laser, I just don't do it in my office. It's not that it doesn't have its place. And I want people to understand that when they see this interview, is that I'm not saying it doesn't have a place. I'm just saying it is not cleared for permanent results. So if you're going to go get laser, be careful when the technician says it is permanent. It has not ever been cleared for that because the FDA didn't see any results saying that. And when they did, I should clarify this also, because looking into this, with our own little project, I had a doctor go back into all of the FDA findings and explain to me what they found, how they did it, and what does laser actually say in FDA terms. What are they cleared for? And when we went back and did our research, the FDA basically said to the laser company, we're giving you permission to go and do this. Come back to us with the findings. Okay. Until then, it isn't permanent. And so far, it has never been.
That clarifies. What are the white hairs? I hear white hairs, having white hairs, and we're not talking about gray hairs that people naturally get from aging. What are the white hairs? What is the byproduct of, and how difficult is it to remove the white hairs?
So white hairs just have no pigment. That's all it is. They have the same structure as a regular hair, follicular wise, and there is no difference for us with our system. We don't target the hair. We don't target the skin. It doesn't matter what color your skin is or what color the hair is. We're literally targeting the follicle. Laser, on the other hand, targets the pigment.
Right.
And I'm not sure that a lot of people know that. It tracks the pigment and it doesn't differentiate between the pigment in your hair and the pigment in your skin. That's why they say that a perfect candidate is somebody who has dark hair, light skin.
Okay. So is removing white hair, because I hear actually quite a few people getting white hair from laser, using the laser, and then going for some form of electrolysis in order to remove them. So because you don't really care what color of the hair, it really doesn't matter whether you're working with white or, okay, got it. So it works either way.
Doesn't matter. We love it. Hair is hair, I always say. We don't care.
So let's talk genitals. I mean, let's talk really juicy subject, because a lot of people are getting, bottom surgeries, whether they're going for the transfeminine or transmasculinizing procedures. For transmasculinizing procedures, we know that people have to have hair removal on their arm or any other harvested side. For trans women, we know that they have to have hair removal on their genitals. And this is such a big kind of misfield, I feel, which method works, because a lot of doctors do scraping off during surgery. A lot of doctors do recommend laser over electrolysis. And then there's some that are very adamant about electrolysis and highly only will see a patient once they had electrolysis. In your opinion, is there really such thing as, particular method that tends to work?
Again, I won't speak for laser because I don't believe that it's permanent. We've had people come into our office telling us that they went for laser treatment and the tech told them come back after surgery. Well, that's a little bit hard to do because you can't get into the area after surgery. So sometimes I just think it's the lack of knowledge on the technician's part, that they don't understand what kind of surgery this person's going to get. And that's dangerous because there is no way to get in there to remove the hair.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask next, because one of the reasons why a lot of doctors are adamant about electrolysis is because that tissue is being inverted to create vaginal canal, trans women at least we're speaking now. And if there's any kind of hair growth in the canal, that can just cause a whole bunch of issues, moisture trapping, bacterial infections, all sorts of things. So this is not a myth. This really happens. And you have seen, have you seen women coming into your office that had hair follicle growing post-surgical procedure?
I have, but very few. They're not our clients. I've had one client come in and tell me that she has. I haven't seen it. I can't confirm it. But the client that I did try to help was not my client. She did have very long hairs. The problem is I can't get in there. Nobody can. So they have to go back and have another surgery, which is really unfortunate. But Natalia, I will say, and I have to put this out there because oftentimes clients don't want to listen and they just want to go to surgery and they want to rush it.
Yeah.
That's something we can't control. If we tell them that it's too soon and you're probably not going to get the permanent results, there's a risk you're still going to grow some hair. Oftentimes they say, I don't care, I don't want to hear it, I'm going to have the surgery done anyway. And I understand the rush,
Sure.
but that I did want to put that out there because that's something we can't control.
Right. So when you had those people, rare people who come in that do have hair follicle in their vaginal canal, there's no way that somebody like yourself, electrologist, can remove it.
No, because we can't get into that canal now. You're talking about trying to even, put an object, let's just say half the size of this pen, but then the canal goes way deeper than that, right?
Yeah.
It's like 7 inches probably against the wall. How do I even get my instrument in there to do that? So that's where the problem is, unfortunately. But I will tell you, and I'm disclosing something here today, further down the road in the future, I have thought about possibly developing something that would eliminate that from happening. It would have to be done by a physician, but the electrolysis equipment that we're working on could help that along significantly.
Wow, that would be really incredible because that would eliminate going for any kind of surgeries in order to remove that hair.
Right. Yeah.
But you are able to see the hair. It is something that you're able to see in the canal. If that happens.
That depends. If they have like significant hair, like real hair, yes. Some people will have little peach fuzz and those won't stay in there. So we never see that because they won't grow inside of that environment. But if you leave some thick hairs, they will get long. And those are the ones that we worry about as electrologists because we know those will continue to grow.
Okay, so electrolysis is highly recommended for hair removal for any of those procedures because, again, we don't want to be stuck with this hair trappings.
I would say absolutely, in my opinion, but some doctors see otherwise.
Have you noticed your patients express a pain difference between electrolysis on face versus genitals? Because the skin does, the skin on the face is a little bit more dense. The genital skin is a little bit, it's different tissue. So have you,
Right?
what?
For a good reason.
For a good reason.
Lots of nerve endings there.
Exactly. So have you noticed people across the board telling you that it's more or less painful in genital area?
It is definitely more painful in the genital area because of the fact that we have so many nerve endings down there for a good reason. And the skin is generally really, really fine. Not to get too graphic, but when I work with genital areas, I can actually see the veins going right, underneath the skin. You don't see that on the face. You see that on the genitals. So yeah, very different skin. But like I said, we offer lots of solutions for pain because we don't want to see them in pain. Yeah. So our clients are very, very comfortable. We always tell them, this is probably a great way for you to be able to tolerate a 4 to 6 hour treatment and get to your surgery faster. If you don't want to do that option, then I can't tell you when that's going to happen because the pain obviously is a little bit different.
Got it. Any hair hacks? Any kind of hacks, tips, tricks for electrolysis takes a while?
Treatments?
Well, yeah, just is there any like hair hacks that you have discovered that would be helpful for people? Maybe either as they're going through the process, the day before electrolysis, drinking lots of water, getting lots of sleep. I mean, I don't know what would make, maybe a lot of people have also another myth is that starting feminizing hormones will make the hair less coarse. And we do know that it does make the hair a little bit less coarse. It doesn't make the hair go away. And does that also affect treatment?
Yes, we talked about the physiology part, right? So my perfect patient, and I'll let you know offhand, is a positive patient, someone that understands it's a process and they're going to give into the process and surrender and just let it happen, right? Let us do our work, let us help them through the process. My worst patient is the patient who knows better than I do what they need and their treatment plan. Those patients oftentimes are negative, and they're negative enough that it's actually impeding their own process.
Yeah.
They're worry warts. They have the weight of the world on their shoulders. Granted, they're in a situation where sometimes it's warranted, but if you're in the process, just let the process happen. So some hacks, yes. We ask our patients to shave a few days before they come in, and I'll tell you why. Hair has a growth cycle, right? And if it's super long, it's going to fall out anyways. I don't want to be treating that dead hair. Your chances of a better, more effective treatment is if the hair is shorter, because then the chances of that hair being in an active growth cycle are almost 99%.
So you want completely shaved?
Not completely, because we're not laser. We have to be able to see the hair. So just enough that we can grab it with a tweezer is perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one of the hacks. The other hack is they just need to relax and follow our instructions. So if we talked about physiology and the pH, the salt that you need, right, for our system. If you're dehydrated, you're probably not going to have a great treatment because it works from the salty tissue in your body. So hydration is key, right? Relaxation is key. You don't want to be so tense that it's hard for me and for you to get through your own treatment. So relaxation is key. Trust the process. We know what we're doing. This is not our first rodeo. We know where you have to go, and we want to get you there fast, and you want to get there fast. So we have to work together, right? It's sort of a partnership for the 18 to 24 months they're in our office. Sometimes faster if they just need a few treatments to get into surgery, and that's fine too. So those are some hacks. The one hack that I will tell you, if you're just starting your transition and you have dark, coarse hair, focus on the ones you can't cover up with makeup. Let us help you there, because there are certain angles that the person coming in knows that are harder to cover up. Tell us what that is. Let us work that first.
Okay. What is the number one mistake that you think, in your opinion, you've seen people make before starting electrolysis or during? Just number one mistakes that you just wish everybody knew to avoid.
Do your research, because I just had this funny moment where a patient spent, I want to say it was about $14,000 on laser, and asked me for a discount. They just came in for the first time. And I said, honey, I'm really sorry that you spent all that money, but you're just starting out with me. So although, you know, it didn't work for you, I still charge what I charge because this is the process.
Right.
So my hope is that people do their research, figure out what it is you want. And the best way to do your research is figure out for you what you want to achieve. If you're the type of person who doesn't really care about the permanent results, but you just don't want to see any hair at all, then maybe you're the laser candidate, because that'll happen for you. But at some point, you're still going to end up with hair, because it doesn't go away permanently. It just sort of disappears for a while you're getting the laser treatment. If you're a person who absolutely needs the hair to be gone permanently, invest from day one, because in the long run, they're both going to cost you.
Okay. So starting also early is obviously imperative. I always send people for the hair removal and voice training are my two number one. It's those are the priorities for people. Right. For sure. Do you think in the field of electrolysis, we will ever see a much more quicker, much more efficient and less expensive way moving forward? Do you think that's ever going to happen? Or do you think we just kind of going to stick to what we're doing now?
I think that technology will definitely work in favor for all of us. I think it will be faster. It will be less expensive because you're going to have more people in the profession, and you're going to see a faster way of achieving permanent results. I think that we already have the technology. It's just a matter of educating people as to what we're sitting on,
So
because
speaking
we're
of
already doing it.
Exactly. Speaking of technologies, I want to move into what you're doing right now and how you are expanding this tech schools that you have. What is it? What got you started on it? I mean, you are clearly are your own businesswoman. You are, have your own business. You've been doing incredibly well, and you've been very instrumental in changing a lot of people's lives. Why expand? Why go beyond that? What is the reason behind all of that? And what is it that you're doing? Share that.
Okay. So the interesting thing, the answer to that question as to why I'm doing it is I never actually thought that I would be doing this at all. I was really hoping that somebody in my industry,
It's always like that, isn't it?
right, in the last 20 years would have already developed a device that I could just literally take and work and expand with their devices and help as many people as I could. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And when I decided, nobody's making the devices in the industry, what do I do? Do I shut my door? Because I'm not going back to single needle. I had an epiphany that maybe I can make devices for myself and keep my doors open. So this has been a 6-year process for me. And a lot of learning, a lot of great moments, but also a lot of moments where you really understand A, how expensive R&D can be.
Yeah.
B, that you need the right team. And C, that you pray for strength and that you can keep going, because oftentimes when you get so close, you just want to give up because it's just a lot, right? Also, I'm a mom, I'm a single mom, and I'm running a company. And we just opened a location in Dallas, which will be open in November. We're working on the plans right now. So there's a lot here to unpack and a lot that I've taken on, but the only thing that keeps me going, and then I'll go back to what we're actually doing, is the emails, the text messages, and the DMs that I get on a daily basis of people saying, I can't get to California. How can I access your system in Saudi Arabia? How can I access your system in Australia?
Yeah.
How can I access your system anywhere in the country? And, we do have a great clientele that travels. We have people who have traveled from Norway, from London, but yet I would love to help people that can't get access to Beverly Hills Hair Free in Beverly Hills. So I've actually found the right team, and we've partnered and created a company called Electrolysis Tech that will be instrumental in producing the new devices. And also, we're going to be using the Beverly Hills Hair Free training program to help people develop the education, the real world experience, everything that we're disclosing today and talking about today. This is all the stuff that they're going to be able to access. This is for the practitioner side. And then how amazing will that be that practitioner now opened up that other market for people that didn't have access to Beverly Hills.
That's incredible. That's going to help so many people in so many different places. And I think it's important when we do something that is so niche focused and is so inaccessible, it's almost a sense of responsibility, if you will, right? As you were sharing, it's somewhat similar to what I do, because I get people say that we don't have experts in this field or people who specialize in this field in other places. And that's where the YouTube, that's where all this comes in, is because I'm able to share. For me, it's easier, right? Because I'm just sharing the content. You're actually sharing something that's physically done, and you're unable just to pack yourself up and travel. So I think that's a great idea, and it comes with a lot of work and a lot of responsibility. My head is definitely goes off to you. When you're training newbies to work in this field, and when you have newbies who are specifically interested in working in trans community, right? What is the piece of advice you give them in terms of working with transgender community?
I would have to say, don't be scared. Everyone's frightful and scared of the unknown, right? That's where our fear comes from. Everyone's just scared of what we don't know. What's the worst thing that could happen? You could learn something beautiful and then share your knowledge and be able to help so many people, right? I always say, everybody could do what I'm doing. I've just been doing it longer. Somebody taught me. I'm going to teach somebody else. And then that person can then go and teach somebody else. Isn't that the beauty of knowledge and sharing our gifts?
Yeah,
So
I would think so.
right? So what are you afraid of? And I always say to my clients, if I don't know or see a case that I've had in my office before, I love those cases. I sit on the phone with people and I say, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I've never done that before, but I would love to help you and to figure out how to fix the problem that you have. So let's try it together.
In what way do you think your work, your extensive work in this field and your extensive work with so many transgender people has informed your personal lens through which you see the world? Has it changed or modified the lens through which you just see gender?
Yes, absolutely. My clients think that they get a gift from me, but I always say they're the gift because I learn so much from them, right? They've opened up a whole new world for me, and they're very open and they share with me, and I love the relationship. So yes, the gift is actually them to me, not the other way around. I don't see that.
That is so beautifully said. I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for being somebody who's paving the way for multi-probe galvanic method that seems to be very efficient and very helpful to a lot of people. I'm really happy for you to be in Dallas. You're filming this now from Dallas. I'm in LA. I'm really happy for you to expand in a different location. I'm going to put all of Alana's information down below for people to take a look at, for people who are locally here, who can travel to either California or to Dallas. If this is something you're interested in, I'll put down all of your information below. Thank you so much for being part of the interviews. I really had a great time asking you all of the juicy questions about the hair and the methods and getting into technicalities.
Thank you, Natalia, and thank you for everything you do, because I know that without you, there would be a big, huge gap in the market, because people do talk really, really great things about you, and I appreciate you and your knowledge and for your expertise in the industry. And thank you again for giving me this interview. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate this time.
Right back at you. Thank you.